Today, we're going to be interviewing Neil Stewart for his launch of his new book, the book on UK property. So I've got quite a lot of questions and ideas and things that I'd like to ask Neil to give you some good idea of why this is really a good purchase for you guys. So Neil, let's start off with your journey. So it started into property after a career in the army and IT. What was the exact moment you realized you needed to change your path and build a property portfolio?
Hi, Michelle. Yeah. So the main reason I left the army was I got fed up of being told what to do, to be honest. I mean, I've probably always been a little bit entrepreneurial, and while I was in the army, a lot of IT was starting to come in, and I was involved in that. And unfortunately, some of the older guys in the army weren't quite so up to speed, and they were asking me to do things that I couldn't get done on the computer systems, but it was the typical army attitude, just get it done, but actually wasn't available. So I kind of got a bit disillusioned with the whole thing and thought this isn't for me anymore.
And you mentioned in your book that your first property investment actually lost you £50 a month. What did that early mistake teach you about the realities of buy-to-lets?
Oh, huge. I mean, the whole property thing was always on the horizon. Always, it's always in the news. People are always talking about it, saying it's a great investment. And I thought, let's get on board. Let's go and buy this first property, which was brought to me by a broker who my parents knew, wasn't somebody I knew. Said, buy this property, get it early before it's finished building, and you'll get a discount below the market value, and it'd be a great investment. The reality is, it turned out to be not such a great investment. After I paid all the bills, etc., I was losing money, so I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest.
Well, before I read your book, I also had the belief that many people do that you need a huge amount of cash to get started in property. How did you manage to buy your first major deal when you had no money left or after paying for your training, for example?
Right, yeah. So my first deal, actually, you don't need a huge amount of money to get into property. Back when I started, you didn't need literally any money, but now you need a little bit. But the training and the coaching and everything I had to teach me how to do it actually helped me find that money through various sources, and actually joint venture in this particular case with somebody who lent me the money that I needed, the deposit money and the works money, to do the work. And so I actually literally had none of my own money to buy my first property, which was just something I'd never thought I could ever do.
And you talk about the power of having a mentor, specifically. I know, and you mentioned in the book, your mentor actually saved you from losing £20,000. So, how crucial is mentorship for a beginner in today's market?
I think it's the best you can ever do. It is something you definitely need to do. Obviously, I'm biased, but I've been through that process. I've got coaches still on board now, and the mentor I had back then. Um, to do that first deal that I wanted to do, I thought I had everything done. I'd done the what we call the classroom work, the theory base. I had all the figures and everything that I thought were correct. And it was one thing that my mentor came with me to look at the property, and he just picked up one little thing that I hadn't seen. And he said, if you do it, this is going to cause you a problem and you're going to lose 20,000. To have that somebody else outside looking in, because I thought I had everything correct, and having somebody to hold my hand at that point, I could have been in big trouble financially.
And I know in the book you have 7 different ways that you can become a successful property investor. But if I'm a beginner and I'm just starting out today, which strategy would you recommend they look at first and why?
Okay, without a doubt, if you've never bought a property before, the buy to let strategy is the one you must start with. Something we call a baby buy to let, a small buy to let, because the whole process of buying a house is going to be something completely new to you. And just by doing that, going through that process, you'll learn all about the way the solicitors work, where the brokers work, how the actual property purchase goes through. And that experience you'll get is massive just by doing that. And jumping into one of the bigger strategies without having that background could get you into trouble.
And if I talk about HMOs, I love throwing jargon into the mix, but houses in multiple occupancy. So you give a great example of making over £700 a month from one property. What's the secret to finding the right area for a successful HMO?
So yeah, finding a HMO, the whole thing is about finding the right area. The house itself is really the structure of the house, how you can arrange the structure for the correct number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, the legislation you have to meet. It's different legislation for HMOs, and different councils in the UK have different rules. So that's very important. But actually finding the HMO, the location, there's a program over here called Location, Location, Location. That is 100% what you need to work out. Where is the HMO? What's the demand for rooms in that area? And will you be able to fill it? And what's your competition? It's very important that you do all of that before you actually commit to buying a HMO.
I can imagine managing tenants in an HMO can be quite challenging, especially in the UK where you've got different cultures and habits all under one roof. What's your top tip for keeping the peace and ensuring everything goes smoothly?
If you have a lot of people in a house like a HMO, if you have five, six different people in there, it's very important to get those personalities right. One of the best things you can do is if you've got two or three people already in the HMO and you're advertising and you're showing people around for the other rooms, is to ask the current tenants to come and meet them as well. And then once the people that have been viewing have left, you can then go to your current tenants and say, what did you think of person A? What do you think of person B? And they'll give you their feedback, because at the end of the day, these people are going to move into the house with them. And if they have an input to it, they can sort of say, well, I like that person because they seem to show an interest in something that I'm interested in, maybe cooking, maybe they wanted to do something together, go out as a group. Because a lot of people come to HMOs, a friend of mine in particular, went into HMOs in the area because he wanted to make friends, wanted to meet new people because he was not from the area. So that's one of the best tips you can do.
And I think one of the other things which everybody is quite aware of, especially me, I love watching TV programs about it, flipping properties. So it's really popular on TV. And you mentioned Martin Roberts' show as an early inspiration. What's your golden rule for deciding if a property is actually a good flip?
Okay, so the golden rule, again, it's about your due diligence. It's about the condition of the property. It's about what value it's going to be worth once you've done it. It's all of that background research. And one thing a lot of people don't do, they think that because they're buying a property and it's cheap, they don't always go and have a look. And that's a really big mistake. You must go and view the property and look what is there, because the brochures and the pictures you see online don't reflect the reality all the time.
And you suggest a good flip should generate you at least £15,000 in net profit. Why is that specific number your baseline? What kind of hidden costs do beginners often forget?
It's pretty much working out what you think your time's worth. I mean, to find one of these properties that you're going to be able to buy, do up and sell and make money on takes a lot of time. You might, for example, one of my properties took me 40 viewings before I actually got the property accepted. Now, if I'm traveling to do those viewings every week, I may be spending a lot of money in travel. I'm taking a lot of my own time. I was a contractor, so I was taking time out of my job. So all of that is cost added in, and you want to make sure that actually it's worth your time. So if you think you're taking 2 or 3 months to find that first really good deal, what's that worth to you? If you're earning at the moment, if you're earning £2,000 a month, £3,000 a month, then maybe you want to have at least that plus some profit on top of that.
Okay. And I know from reading your book that social housing is a strategy you're really passionate about. What are the unique benefits for investor who chooses to lease their property to a council or a housing association?
There are lots of different benefits and different grants and loans and support available to you through different councils. Not all councils are the same. So, for example, some councils may actually offer you money if you buy a property that's run down and neglected, to bring it back up into a standard, to re-rent out to people, and even to offer it to their clients, people that are on benefits, to come and take that property on. Some council will give you some money towards that. And we're talking thousands of pounds, not just a little bit. Some councils will also give you a loan. They'll give you a loan to help you bring the property up, and it's normally an interest-free loan. So all of these things, and there are lots of other things and benefits that you can do, renting to councils or leasing to councils. There's also, long-term leases you can do where you won't have to do much at all with the property and the money just keeps coming in. in actual fact, during COVID, obviously the council kept paying for the tenants and for the properties you had, even though some of the private rented properties you might have, people were struggling to earn anything because their jobs were cut or they were put on the leave that they had to take until the COVID was finished.
And I know you've actually helped a family navigate the benefit system just so their child could live in a purchased property with support. How important is the giving back element of your property business?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, that particular thing you mentioned there was a lady I know, and her daughter was in um, assisted accommodation or service accommodation where the council were putting her up and they had a person there looking after them all the time. And that was a massive cost to the council. The lady thought, okay, well, my daughter's got older now and she has the support that'll come and visit her. So I'll buy a property, move her into it, and then all we'll have then is the housing benefit coming in rather than all the extra amount that they were getting paid from the government to help her keep her daughter in this assisted living. Um, and unfortunately, some of the councils don't always understand what you're doing. And I helped her to navigate that to say, actually, you've saved the government money, you've put your daughter into a property which you know is safe and good for her, and you've still got the support coming from the support workers that she has coming in every day or every week.
Absolutely. Now, one thing that always makes me very nervous while watching things on TV is buying at auction. So it's horribly fast paced. I think it's a bit intimidating. What's the biggest trap new investors fall into when that hammer goes down?
What's the biggest what? Sorry, I missed that.
The biggest trap for new
Biggest trap.
investors. Yeah.
Okay, so I personally think auctions are fabulous because at the moment in the UK, it can take months and months and months to buy a property. That they're stopping their things are blocking them or surveys, whatever things are going slowly. Whereas with the auction, hammer goes down and you have 25 days, 30 days, sometimes even less to complete the purchase, which means it goes through much quicker. The biggest trap though, or the things you've got to be careful of are not viewing the property or not having a survey done or not having the pack read beforehand. There's a pack that is produced for every auction, the auction pack, which is kind of everything that would get done if you were buying the property normally, but that gets done after your offer is accepted under a normal traditional sale. But with the auction, all of that's done before. So you have this legal pack that you must get checked. If you don't understand the legal pack, you get a solicitor on board and get them to read through because there may be things in that legal pack that you had no idea about, which could affect your purchase. For example, some of the councils don't like people buying houses and turning them into HMOs. They want them just kept as a family home. So if you don't know that and you go and buy the property, then you find out there's a caveat in there or a covenant that says you can't do it, then your whole strategy's gone wrong and you've bought something which you can't use where you've done your figures on to make that money.
I know you admit to once buying a property at auction without having the finances in place, which you specifically advise against. What was going through your mind and how did you manage to pull it off?
So that was a situation where we had a client who asked us if we would go to the auction on their behalf and purchase a couple of properties for them. They had some money they wanted to put into property. We viewed the properties, but they couldn't make it to the auction. There was something like five properties in this particular portfolio that were for sale, and they'd all been repossessed by the bank. And we looked at all five of them, so we knew the properties already. Although I hadn't gone to the particular one that we're talking about, but this was a colleague of mine that I was working with at the time. She looked at it. So we went to the auction, got the properties that this lady wanted. She got her two or three properties, and then the auction kept going on. And this one property was on there, and it was really, really ridiculously cheap. And what had happened is the guys that came to buy the auction had already bought everything they wanted. They'd spent all their money. This one property was just not shifting. So I turned and I asked the lady that had viewed it a little bit more about it, and she said it's absolutely solid. There's no problems with it. So that was good enough for me because I trusted her judgment.
Sounds a bit hectic. So on to something else that's also a little bit of a maybe controversial topic. Rent to rent is a strategy that also gets a lot of attention online. How do you ensure you're doing it legally and ethically rather than just kind of subletting under the radar?
Yeah, I mean, you must do it legally and ethically. There is certain contracts and paperwork you need to have in place with the owner of the property. The main thing that can trip you up here is if there's a mortgage on the property. Mortgage lenders don't like subletting. If they know that you're subletting the property, they may come back to you and say, well, you're breaking the terms of our mortgage agreement and we want you to pay the mortgage back now. And that's that's a possibility if you go ahead and do something like that. So making sure you know what needs to be done, what the regulations are, finding out if there's a mortgage on there, finding out how you can do it properly and correctly with the right contracts is really important with rent to rent.
And talking about mortgages, you stress the importance of stress testing your mortgage calculations at a 6% interest rate. Why is this buffer so critical for long-term survival in the property market?
I think people have got a little bit of complacency with the such low Bank of England base rates for such a long time that they thought that, 0.5%, 0.25% was normal, and we could get interest rates through buy-to-lets for 1%, 2%, 3%. But as we've all seen, when something goes wrong and something happens, and it doesn't have to be anything that you have, and it's obviously something you've not got control with, things like wars, people, the market crashing, then interest rates are the first thing that get hit by the government. The Bank of England pushes the rates up and your interest rates go up. So although right now you could probably get a mortgage around about 3 or 4%, that may not be the case for the future. So you need to make sure your property is stress tested at 6% and it still makes you the money that you want it to make, so that if that interest rate does shoot up, it's not going to put you in a position where you're thinking, oh my word, I've got to sell. I'm in trouble. I can't earn any money off this property.
And lease options, they kind of allow investors to control a property without a traditional deposit. Can you explain how it's possible to secure a property for £1, for example?
Okay, so lease options are absolutely fabulous. I love them. It's something that have been in the UK for a shorter period of time than they've been perhaps in other countries. But it is exactly that. It is a situation where we used to say a lot of negative equity, where somebody has a mortgage on the property that is more than the property's worth. So even selling the property, they wouldn't make the money to clear the loan. So in that situation, you could take over that property's mortgage for a period of time. We call it babysitting the mortgage. Agree a price in the future with the seller that will clear their mortgage. And during that period of time, you will then pay all the bills and all the costs, so that owner of the property doesn't have any problems, doesn't have any more bills or anything unexpected to come out. And depending on your strategy, depending on what you do with it, you've then done the figures to make sure you will make money over and above what you're paying that person.
And I know you've built a reliable power team over the years. Who are the essential people every new property investor needs in their phone book from day one?
There's a few. So you definitely need a good conveyancing. So that's a solicitor on board. You need to have a great accountant on board who can tell you how that purchase of that property is going to affect your personal tax, because everybody's different. Whether you buy it in a personal name or a company name, that accountant will be able to advise you correctly. Brokers, mortgage brokers are absolutely the most important thing you can find, because if you find a good broker who is all of market, that means that they can offer you a product for the purchase you're looking at that covers the whole of the lending market, not just the brokers that are in bed, for want of another better word, in an agreement with lenders, and they only offer their products. Builders and your electricians and your plumbers and those kind of things you would get locally, and that's something you're taught through your coach and your mentor how to find the great people. But not having a power team kind of puts you in a little bit of a pickle to start with. So it's good to have either someone you can ask who to maybe tap into their power team. I'm happy to lend people my power team, give them the contacts that I use.
And the property market changes all the time. These new regulations, economic shifts. How do you stay ahead of the curve and make sure your portfolio stays profitable?
Gosh, there are a couple of organizations which you should be members of. There are one of the biggest ones most people know about is the NRLA, National Residential Landlords Association. They are one of the biggest association for landlords, and they're lobbying the government They they publish all the documentation. You should also be looking at things that the government are pushing out, what legislations are coming through. There are multiple places you can find that information, but you need to find it from the good sources, not the sources that maybe aren't quite so credible.
And you moved from being an investor to a mentor and a coach. What's the most common limiting belief you see holding people back from taking their first step into property?
I think the biggest belief is the thing you mentioned earlier, and that is that need a lot of money to get into property, or I can't do this. How can I buy multiple properties? I've only got a certain amount of money in the bank account. Those are all beliefs that people come with to say they can't go forward and they can't buy properties, but they can if they learn the correct way to do it and the right procedures. It is doable. It's absolutely possible.
And if a reader takes away just one core message from the book on UK property, what do you hope that message will be?
I think if they're serious about getting into property and building a portfolio to replace income, whatever they want to do it for, then they just got to understand that they will get knockbacks. Things won't go the way they want them. It's the persistence and the keep going and the keep going, knowing you're doing it right and you've got the right process in place. You will get there. And I mentioned earlier, my first ever property, I took 80 viewings before I got the offer accepted, the one I wanted.
And I know you just received your first award on the UK Wealth Creation through Property Investment Award for your book as being an author. What does that mean to you?
Oh, that's fabulous. I've never had an award like this before. It's just fabulous getting the recognition from the publisher to say that, this is a worthwhile book and it means something to them.
And where can people get hold of your book?
You can buy the book on Amazon. It's literally the book on UK property. Um, and just do search on Amazon UK and Amazon.com as well.
And they can, of course, attend your upcoming workshop.
They can. If they are serious about it, they should come along to the workshops, where I will literally teach them as much as I can in the time we've got on the various strategies on how to do it. And also we touch on something called creative finance, which is also ways to finance those properties and not the traditional ways of saving up your money and then spending it on your first property and then having nothing left at the end of it.
And I believe they get the book for free if they come to attend the workshop.
They do. The book is absolutely free and I'll sign it on the day as well.
Thanks so much, Neil. It was really good. Congratulations on the book. And I'm sure it's going to go from strength to strength. And hopefully you will be training lots and lots of people on how to have a successful retirement and fund their future. They don't necessarily have to wait till they retire. There's lots of professionals who can do it as extra income. And from beginners to experienced people, I think there's something everybody can learn from your book and your workshops.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to seeing people on the workshops. And I hope if they buy my book, they really enjoy it and it inspires them.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for your time. We'll chat soon.